right, I welcome you to this yet another good unit that we continue with the Bible knowledge in Standard 6. Today we are in Unit 9 where we are looking at the conflict resolution in the family. If you remember, in the previous units, we have been looking at the conflict. We looked at the conflict in the family, conflict at school, conflict in the society, the conflict and its effect, the effect of conflict. Now, this time around, we'll be looking at the conflict resolution. How do we resolve the conflicts in the family? So it's another good one, another good part that we are going to look at. So be attentive and follow through until the end of this unit. So let us be together up to the end. Now, in the family, as we looked at, there are sometimes conflicts. There are conflicts. So how do you resolve the conflicts in the family? So we are also going to look at the biblical references on how maybe in the Bible those who were in conflict and how did they solve that problem. Especially, we're going to look at the issue of Abraham and his nephew Lot, because there was a conflict at some point. So we'll look at those issues. So conflict resolution is the process of bringing disagreements and misunderstandings to an end. Conflict resolution is the process of bringing disagreements and misunderstandings to an end. So when there are disagreements, when people do not agree with each other, maybe on a certain issue, then you come together and discuss on the way forward. So that one is what is called conflict resolution. When there is a conflict, then you want to come together to discuss an issue. That one is what is called conflict resolution. So it is the process of bringing disagreements and misunderstandings to an end. So when conflicts are not resolved peacefully at an early stage, more serious problems may arise. Conflicts, they need to be solved at the early stage. When they just arise, that is when conflicts, they are supposed to be solved. So when you keep that conflict for quite long, then some serious problems may arise, which may sometimes you may fail even to control such conflict. There are several ways of solving conflicts peacefully in the family. So some conflicts, they may seem to be big, some small, but still more, there are different ways of solving these conflicts in the family. So what are these ways of solving the conflicts in the family? So how do we solve conflicts in the family? Number one, talking to each other about the conflict. So when there is a conflict, you talk to each other about that conflict to say there is this problem here. So each one has to know that really there is a problem. So that is the first way. You have to know that there is a problem somewhere. So you talk to each other about the conflict. Number two is a fair distribution of resources. Fair distribution of resources. Remember, one of the causes of conflicts, we said that it is unfair distribution of resources. There are resources and someone is given more than the other. That one can cause conflict in the family. Therefore, there has to be a fairness in the distribution of resources that are there in the family. Also, showing love. Showing love is another way of solving the conflict. So you solve the conflict by showing love to one another in the family. Another way is being considerate when dealing with issues affecting other, exercising justice. So, okay, being considerate being considerate when doing with issues, uh, being considerate when dealing with issues affecting one another. So we need to deal each other in to be considerate. We have to consider. We have to be good to one another whenever we are dealing with anything in the family. So the other issue is exercising justice. Exercising justice is also another point where on how we resolve just conflict in the family. So there has to be fairness. Justice about fairness to say, right, what is wrong has to be dealt with accordingly. So that is another way, justice. And also guidance and counseling. Guidance and counseling skills. You have to talk to someone, guide someone to say, no, this one is bad, and or else, no, this is not the best way of doing this. The best way of doing this is that. So that's how you solve the conflict. You tell someone the best way how to handle something. So that is uh, guidance and counseling. Now, Bible stories on the importance of resolving conflicts peacefully. So we have some stories in the Bible where it is stipulated on how we can solve conflicts peacefully. So what are some of these biblical stories that we have? So we have on Genesis chapter 13 verse 8 to verse 13. Read that passage, and also Genesis chapter 33 verse 1 through 20, Genesis chapter 42 verse 1 through 38. There are those stories that talk about Abraham, that talk about Jacob on how they resolved the conflict with his brother Esau, and also Joseph, how the conflicts were solved with his brothers. We know what happened there. So these are the biblical stories that tell us how best to solve the conflicts when they are there or when they arise in the family. So in the Bible, a conflict developed between Abraham's headsmen and Lot's headsmen. So we know in Genesis chapter 13, when we have read that one, you see that Abraham had a lot of flocks, animals, as well as Lot. So the headsmen who were looking after Abraham's animals and Lot's animals, they came into conflict because of the grazing land. It was not enough to accommodate both animals. Therefore, there was a conflict between the two groups. So the conflict did not get worse because Abraham used the following ways to stop the disputes. So we see that Abraham used a peaceful conflict resolution method. So what did he do? Number one, he distributed the resources fairly by telling Lot to choose the best land he wanted. So Abraham told Lot to say, right, Lot, you and me, we are relatives. We should not be in conflict. Therefore, choose, see the land, choose wherever you want to go there, and I'll go the other direction. That is a fair distribution of resources. Also, he respected himself and others. So Abraham had respect for himself and also for others. He respected Lot. He also respected himself too. So, all right, we did not to quarrel because we are relatives. So, being my relative, choose wherever you want to go. I'll go the other side. So he respected himself and respected others. So in conflict resolution, we have to respect ourselves as well as respect others. He also exercised justice and patience. So Abraham was someone who exercised justice to say, right, we need to distribute these resources fairly and in a just manner. Therefore, he was just to Lord. He was fair to Lord to say, right, choose wherever you want to go. And he was also patient. Abraham was older than Lot. He could not say that, because I'm older, therefore I will choose the best and the rest is for you. But he was so fair and patient. Remember how he dealt it. He gave first to Lot to say, choose. So he gave him the choice to say, right, choose wherever you want to go. If you choose this direction, I'll go the other direction. That is justice. And he was even patient enough. So what Abraham did maintained peace and promoted unity and cooperation. So we see that example of Abraham to say what he did there really maintained peace and also promoted unity and cooperation between himself, his family, his herdsmen, and the Lord's headsmen, and even Lord himself. So that's the way to solve the problems. That's the way to solve the conflicts when they arise. There has to be peace. We have to promote unity and cooperation, knowing that the conflicts, if they are resolved peacefully, people are going to be united, no matter that there was that conflict. So in the family, we have to take an example from Abraham. So is all these apply to peaceful family conflict resolution because Abraham and Lot were living together as one family. So we have learned here that Abraham and Lot, they were a family and they enlarged on peaceful conflict resolution. So that is what is supposed to be done. Whenever there is a conflict, it needs to be solved peacefully. Another example is on Esau and Jacob. Uh, Resolved their conflict peacefully by hugging and kissing each other. So we see that when Jacob ran away to Haran, there was a time when he wanted to come back. He came back and he met with Esau and they hugged and uh, they hugged each other, they kissed each other as brothers, they buried their differences. Although Jacob stole the blessings of Esau, but in the end, they hugged and they solved that conflict amicably or in a friendly way. Also, another thing is Joseph forgave his brothers who sold him to the Ishmaelites by welcoming them and giving them food in Egypt. So another example in chapter 42 of Genesis, you have read that one, I guess. You have read that story whereby Joseph forgave his brothers, although they were the ones who threw him into that pit, who got him out and sold him to the Ishmaelites, who sold him to Egypt. But later on, Joseph forgave his brothers and he sold them food. He gave them food. In the end, he gave them land to stay in Goshen. There, they stayed with their family. So that is another example, a biblical story on how conflict can be resolved in a peaceful way, in a just way. So conflicts are there, but they need to be solved in a peaceful way. Now, let us watch this small clip that we are going to see how it happened in the conflict resolution in one of these biblical stories. So let us watch out this one and see how it went all about. Now, I have with me here an exercise. Exercise for you to do. Number one, what is conflict resolution? What is conflict resolution? Number two, what can happen when conflicts are not resolved at an early stage? What can happen when conflicts are not resolved at an early stage? Mention any three ways of resolving conflicts in the family. Mention any three ways of resolving conflicts in the family. Number four, how were the following conflicts resolved in the Bible? Abraham and Lot, Jacob and Esau, Joseph and his brothers. So how were these conflicts resolved in the family? So this exercise, try to do it as quickly as possible before you go to the next unit. So we have come to the end of this unit where we are looking at the conflict resolution in the family. So we have seen that we have to resolve the conflicts amicably, in a peaceful, in a just and fair way. So we have seen how conflicts are supposed to be resolved. And again, we have looked at some of the biblical examples like Abraham, how he solved the conflict with Lot, and Jacob, how he solved the conflict with his brother Esau, and also Joseph, how he solved the conflict with his brothers who sold him to the Ishmaelites and found himself in Egypt. So we have looked at how those things went about. There were conflicts, but they were solved in a friendly way. So in the next lesson, we are going to look at Unit 10. So in the Unit 10, we'll look at conflict resolution in the school. Conflict resolution in the school. Remember, we looked again at the conflicts in the school. There are also conflicts in the school and their effects again. We looked at that. And here we are going to look at how do we solve the conflicts in school. So conflict resolution in the school. So until next time, stay blessed.